Hi, welcome back. Right. Chapter 8, Still Searching. The moment I saw the hardwood floors, the large windows, and the full finished basement, I was in love. All of us had our own room. We had enough space to get our things out of storage. During the months of moving, the storage unit flooded. Many things were too damaged to keep. Between the water, mold, or creature damages to mattresses, we lost a lot. Mom got the biggest room. Her room had a large window that looked onto the backyard. The closet was a full wall with mirrored doors. She didn't have enough clothes to fill the whole closet, so half of it was storage. Her twin bed and dresser were the only things she had to fill the large room. Her door was never closed to us. At all hours, we would go in and talk to her if we needed. If I had a nightmare, I would sleep on the floor next to her. Even if she was in the bathroom, we talked to her. Often, we would find her trying to hide that she was crying in the bathroom. Providing for her children was my mother's purpose. The goal was to give us a safe home to live in with food and happiness. She did that at her own expense. Her happiness wasn't her priority, but her happiness became a priority to her daughters. We watched her struggle with depression medication and her weight. Side effects of medication and medication changes lasted months at a time because of the nature of the medication. It was easy to notice her dramatic weight fluctuations. She told us what we needed to know, but I am sure she hid the worst from us. The oldest sister got to pick her room first. Her choice was the largest room at the end of the hall to the left. Her closet was a walk-in closet that was large enough for two people to sleep in. Her window also faced the backyard, so she watched if anyone was outside. We could hide nothing from her. I envied that room. Neither sister was allowed in her room without permission. And even though her OCD was improving, the room was filled with objects she collected to help her feel more in control. Her room was always a complete mess. The middle sister had the largest window, but the smallest room. The smallest room was at the end of the hall to the right. Her room was always the one with the most clothes on the floor and least decorated. My room was a decent size with a little window facing the driveway and the massive tree. I had the smallest window, but a great front view. Plus, I had the best closet. My closet was over the stairs. To compensate for the raised angle, my closet had a large step. I got creative and I used my things to create a large platform. Pillows and blankets created a soft 4x4 space that I would read and listen to music with my headphones. With my Walkman, I would listen to CDs and learn all the words to Spice Girls. Just like with my movies, I could listen to CDs on repeat. I would fall asleep listening to music sometimes. I love my naps. When I felt depressed or hurt, I would hide in my closet nook. Out of all three daughters, I was the only one who painted their room. I loved to decorate, and my mother allowed me the freedom. Not only did I get to paint my room, but I painted the kitchen, the living room, and basement. And just like my original room, excuse me, Mom gave me the ability to paint the way I'd like. Somehow she came up with the money for the painting supplies. Since I was older, my decorating tastes had matured as well. My room was painted baby blue with an attempt at white clouds. My room resembled a sunny day, even though inside the depression was becoming worse. I printed out at least 100 Bible verses and taped them to the ceiling. I would lie on my bed and read them for encouragement as I cried and contemplated suicide. My white daybed and white vanity were still my prized possessions. They matched the clouds, and my room felt complete. Both pieces of furniture were getting old and not as sturdy because of the amount of times they had been assembled and reassembled. In a bold move, I painted the kitchen red. Alone and happily, I used small brushes to paint the kitchen. The walls were small areas between cabinets and around appliances. No one was allowed to help me. If I got grumpy if people came into my space. Even though it took me longer to complete the room, I was the only one I trusted to do it neatly and correctly. Carefully, I taped the corners and cabinets to the edges so the lines were clean. There would be no mistakes. Mom liked wicker baskets, so we went to Goodwill and bought a few. We nailed them to the wall above the cabinets to represent something Mom liked. We were celebrating in our own way that this was our space. The basement was a work of art. When we first moved in, it was unspectacular. In fact, we barely went into the basement. The 3 cats we had left were put in the basement and not allowed into the rest of the house. They had been at one of my mom's friends' houses during the move. We decided Midnight would stay at the house and only the 3 sisters' cats would come to the house. Together, all 4 of us decided that it was best for keeping the house nice. None of us wanted a repeat of the duplex. People with allergies could now visit with no worries. Now, the carpet ruined would be in the basement. 3 cats made the basement uninhabitable. When it was time to replace the carpet and reclaim the basement from the cats, the middle sister and I were in charge of decorating. I pulled up the carpet alone. It didn't matter to me that I could barely breathe from the cat dander and dust. I had to take frequent breaks to go outside to breathe clean air. I wanted to do it myself. I used my anger to fuel my cutting the carpet into pieces. Cutting the carpet into pieces that I could roll and drag upstairs. One of the jobs Mom had was for a company that gave her a deal on new carpet for bedrooms. During the installation, I lived in the basement, and it was amazing. I loved sleeping in the cold and the darkness. There were only 2 small windows to let light in. Eventually, the basement became my permanent home. Many times, the basement became the hangout area for friends. Movie nights and game time entertained me and my friends from church and school on multiple occasions. I finally had the confidence to have friends on my own. I had a home, and I was proud to invite them in. For some reason, we chose the basement walls to be 2 colors. The top was a toned down yellow, and the bottom was a pastel purple. In the middle, there was a paper border that we did not apply in a straight line. As an accent color, we chose powder light green. The staircase leading to the basement had no railing, but it did not provide a place for monkey bars either. All sisters had grown too tall to enjoy that game anyway. We painted the underside of the stairs the powder light green. There was no railing on the stairs, so it was easy to climb from the basement onto the second half of the stairs leading into the dining area. There was a long living room, dining room, and family room. The computer was in the family room. For a long time, the computer desk was the only thing in that room. AOL and the internet was just getting popular. My sisters and I would play a game where we got to steal cars and run over people. I liked to run over the orange joggers the most. They were clustered. Later, I would find out they were prisoners, not joggers. The only version of this game we had was a 5-minute demo, and we would take turns collecting cars and setting them on fire. One sister liked to take the train and see how far she could go in 5 minutes. Each sister had their favorite car to steal. When my sisters and I started to dictate how my mom drives according to Grand Theft Auto rules, the game was deleted. The oldest sister decided the game wasn't Christian and deleted the game. The kids in the neighborhood helped us create a volleyball court in our backyard. In the field behind our house, a baseball field was mowed for our entertainment. We became the center of activity for high school kids in the area. Our relationships flourished, and our lives truly began. Every other weekend, we were required by the courts to see our father. On Friday afternoons that he was coming, we packed our bags in tears. It felt like we would never come back home. Dad would pick us up in his car that he's always had, that smells like farts. He would drive us 45 minutes backwards in time to the house filled with emotional memories. I would always be home from school the following week for at least one day. It was rare if I made it 2 weeks in school without being absent once. My homework and grades never suffered, so the school didn't seem to care. My mom noticed symptoms of depression in the apartment and saw how they continued. She took me to the doctor, and I was put on medication to stabilize my depression and anxiety. I wasn't the only daughter suffering from depression. We were all angry and trying to cope. When the oldest sister hurt herself, she would scratch her arms a few times or use a knife to make marks on the top of her forearms. When I hurt myself, no one knew and no one saw. I would dig my nails into my anterior wrist so it could easily be turned down or covered. I used wart removal liquids to burn the skin around my ankles so it could be concealed with socks. I hurt so badly on the inside that hurting on the outside gave me a direct pain to focus on. I wanted to die. I didn't like myself, and I didn't like life. I would lay in the darkness for hours. I had printed Bible verses to comfort me and taped them to my ceiling. I tried to remind myself that life was good, but I still felt so much pain. I would have a bottle's worth of pills in my hand, and I wanted to put them all in my mouth and swallow. I would imagine my body being found by my mom. I pictured her face as she saw her daughter without life. I couldn't hurt her that way. Mom had enough other medical issues on her mind. The oldest daughter was sleeping extra amounts. She had been bleeding heavily for her menstrual cycle too long. She became weak and pale. A friend from church was called to carry her down the stairs so my mom could drive her to the hospital. Upon arrival, the doctor informs my mom that her daughter has meningitis and needs a spinal tap. My mother was extremely concerned because the doctor had barely examined my sister. Enraged at how the doctor was acting, my mom put my sister in a wheelchair and walked out. My mom drove my sister to a different hospital that gave her a proper medical exam before diagnosis. My sister's blood amount was so low that the doctor informed my mom that if she had been 1 hour later, my sister would have died from blood loss. My sister required a blood transfusion to live. When she came home, it was the beginning of a rough, emotional few months in the house. In order to control the monthly bleeding, birth control was prescribed. The stigma of taking birth control in high school because you're sexually active made my sister embarrassed to tell anyone what medication she was on. The medications would create wild and angry mood swings that ended in yelling matches with mom. These months were the only time shouting matches had ever happened. The oldest sister was so angry at me in the living room that she wanted to throw something at me. My irate sister grabbed a cactus with the intention of throwing it across the room. A tense moment turned hilarious when her fingers hurt and she realized what she had grabbed. Putting the cactus down, she realized how out of control she had been. She started to laugh, so we all laughed. Humor helped us let go of our anger. The best times were when we were laughing together. I had now been homeschooled, enrolled in 2 elementary schools. After finally getting comfortable at my middle school, I looked forward to being at the same school for 3 years. I desperately wanted to be with the same group of friends for longer than 1 year. In school, it was not easy to eat. It was easy to pack my small lunch. I had been bringing lunch to school since kindergarten. Buying lunch at school terrified me. I was scared to stand in line. I was scared to choose my food. I was scared to spend money. I was scared I wasn't going to eat in time, and I felt safe bringing my lunch and having control. I had a locker, and I was able to function like the other kids. Britney Spears posters filled the other kids' lockers, but I had magnet creatures I had gotten on church trips. I was beginning to have friends at church. I was talking to kids at school, but I didn't have friends I could confide in. Friends of my sisters were always at the house. At one point, Mom got mad because we were always feeding our friends. On a regular basis, we had at least 3 to friends over. There were 3 of us plus friends. That is a lot of adolescents running around unsupervised. Many of my sister's friends lived a few houses away. During the summer, 10 Things I Hate About You and A Knight's Tale were playing on repeat. Heath Ledger was really what we wanted to see. To keep a volleyball net up in the backyard at all times, we used concrete in containers. Every day it was sunny, we played. We killed the grass one year because there was so much movement on the court. Shoes were necessary because without them, your feet would get hurt by the dry grass. When you bounced the ball, the grass moved like hay. There was a field behind our yard that was long and wide. It was mowed by the city, but one of us would mow a baseball diamond in the middle. The lowest setting on a motor worked well to create a clear baseline. I never played because I suck at sports, but I liked to watch. In an attempt to spend time with his children, Dad came to play baseball in the back field we created. He met our friends, and it was a good memory. Mom wouldn't let him in the house, so we found an outdoor, at-home activity we could do. Being uncoordinated, I threw the ball at my father's balls. It was an accident, but it made me happy. Kids in the neighborhood would stay up late at night climbing the large tree in front of our house or playing volleyball. More than once, we were yelled at by neighbors for being too loud too late. I was injured many times out of clumsiness or attention-seeking behavior that it became a running joke. Most times, I was a fly on the wall with my sister's friends. As with younger siblings, I wasn't always welcome. That was when my closet nook became my safe space to cry. Even on one of my birthdays, I cried in my closet. My grades were consistently high, and half the time my mom didn't need to go to teacher conferences or open house because we told her everything already. When we had an issue, Mom addressed it immediately and was familiar with our teachers. There was a project at school that offered 5 points extra credit for a poem in addition to the assignment. With ease, I created so many poems that I earned more extra credit than the assignment originally worth. Poetry became my therapy. Life was not easy with my sisters. We had many hours alone with each other while my mom worked. I often got angry and would stomp away, and I would go to my room. Sometimes they would come and check on me after a while, and out of anger, and without their knowledge, once I brought a super soaker to my room. When they opened the when I opened the door to see them, I soaked them. Other times, I would throw objects down the stairs hoping they would break. The plan would be to hurt myself with something sharp. I never chose an object that broke correctly. School boundaries were out of our control. I was not allowed to stay in my 6th grade school because a new middle school was being built. Once again, I had to start over with a new group of friends. By 7th grade, I refused to smile in pictures. I was on antidepressant medication, but the correct dosage was yet to be found. I hated the way I looked, and meat had always been a food that was difficult for me to eat. It was a texture aversion that made me hate the way a fatty meat chunk feels in my mouth. I found my new best friend in 7th grade. He was in 6th grade, and we had never spoken, even though he went to the same church. After school, I was going to clean a house for someone at the church. I was trying to earn money so I didn't need to ask my mom. My future best friend lived across the street from my cleaning job. My mom arranged for me to get a ride from her church friend that also has a kid in the same school. I think I scared him as I followed him to his car. Once I explained who I was, we became friends. We saved seats for each other at church and we laughed. Every time I tried to organize a youth event at my house, he showed up. Another boy had just moved into the area and was now at the church regularly. We became the Three Musketeers. Felt popular. I felt respected and included. I had never felt those emotions before. Many found it odd that a girl was best friends with two boys, but I didn't care. Those two dudes meant the world to me. Their friendship helped shape me who I am. I needed their friendship as much as a bright light in a dark world. We were kids, so we never spoke about how much we meant to each other. I don't know if I meant the same to them, and I don't know if they know how much they meant to me. There. Me and my two guys would get driven to the movie theater regularly. I loved that we were hanging out at the same fancy theater where I saw Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. We invited more kids from the youth group, but usually it ended up just being us three. I never cared what movie we saw. I loved movies and I loved being included. The time in the car was my favorite because that was when we got to talk. Eventually, hormones set in, so there are complicated feelings that are hard to explain. When one of my guys had a romantic interest, I intensely disliked her. I didn't romantically think about. Right. I didn't romantically think about my best friend, but I hated her. I didn't want to take her place, but I was desperate for her not to be around. Both of the boys came, or guys, we'll stick with guys. Both the guys came from stable and wealthy homes. I had always dreamed I could live in a house like they did. The only other person I had known to live in a house this big, and that big, was my kindergarten friend's father. I hadn't seen her or talked to her in years. The last I heard, my two kindergarten best friends now lived in a town nearby. Although my kindergarten best friends seemed to have money, their house was more broken and toxic than mine had been. I consider my kindergarten best friend's family explanation similar to the Cinderella story. My best friend's father married an evil woman with two daughters. The evil woman wouldn't allow her stepdaughter to leave the table until she finished her pint of ice cream and 2-liter soda. The result would be thousands of dollars in dental work decades later. The stepdaughter becomes overweight because the evil stepmother forces her to eat butter noodles by the bowl. Her grades suffered because at home, my best friend was denied internet and computer access. Without computers, she could not complete all of her assignments. The stepsisters are powerless to intervene and stop the abuse. They're only children themselves. The evil woman is their mother. Her behavior is normal to them, so they do what they can. My best friend's father, the evil woman's husband, chose to ignore the damage being done to his daughter. I wrote letters and gave them to my best friend, begging her father to wake up and see the abuse. He chose to ignore the abuse. I wanted to save my friend from the painful life I was watching her live. I knew I got to leave, but she couldn't. The evil woman had convinced my best friend as a child that her biological mother didn't want her. She thought there was nowhere to go. For years, my best friend endured being trapped in her room instead of being allowed to go to school. The evil stepmother would place a piece of tape on the outside of her door to inform her if my best friend left her room to go to the bathroom. If the tape was broken or not in the same place, Severe and sometimes physical punishments would follow. My best friend lived in fear, and her father refused to protect her. Her father closed his eyes and did not protect his daughter from his wife. I will never forgive my best friend's father. I will never forgive the evil woman. My kindergarten best friend says she'll never forgive my father. As we got older, we were still required to go see our father every other weekend. Our schedules filled up with youth activities, and two sisters were involved with sports. Sometimes I was the only child available for weekend visitations. At first, dread would wash over me because without my sisters, I would be alone with him for 2 nights. I was packed and I had prepped myself emotionally for this weekend. I waited on the porch for him for hours. My emotions were a confusing blur. Happiness because I got to stay home. Hurt because I thought I wasn't enough for him to travel 45 minutes. One daughter wasn't enough. Wasn't worth the hassle. I wasn't going to call him and ask him to come and get me. I wasn't going to ask why he never came, but my self-worth was damaged by the lack of communication. Other weekends, the middle sister would refuse to leave the house. All sisters stood together and refused to walk through the door. Police were called by my father. He was angry because my mother would not allow him in the house. He could not go in and get us himself. The police refused to enter the house and force us into his car. We got to stay home. The oldest sister was involved in swim team, so she was unavailable many weekends. The middle sister was involved in volleyball, so she was unavailable many weekends. All other open weekends were filled with our church youth activities. The sisters were enjoying being part of a family and being with friends as much as possible. An event all sisters were looking forward to was a paintball event with the youth group. Permission slips were signed and payments were made. I had never been to a paintball event before. A detail that was not dealt with was that it was our father's weekend for visitation. Our father refused to allow his daughter the paintball experience. His girlfriend was in town, and we were going to museums in downtown Chicago. We were angry. In an effort to ease the tension, my father purchased me a pack of many gel pens that were popular at the time. I was very thankful, but still resentful. I carried around a notebook because our court-ordered therapy suggested we write down what was happening. I took that to heart, and I began writing non-stop in my notebook. In rebellion, I was difficult at the museum. I didn't want to look around. I didn't want to walk for miles and miles with these adults. Instead, I walked slowly, distracted by my notebook. I would sit down and get left behind, so they had to come back for me. I did not make a good impression on my future stepmother again, and I didn't care. Lost in my thoughts, sitting behind my father while he drove home, I carefully picked out the color pen I wanted to use for the next sentence of my journal. From the front passenger seat, his girlfriend says snarkily, "Are you writing down how you're repaying your father for the pens by being a brat?" My father said nothing. My father declined to protect me from a woman that didn't know me. I felt verbally attacked, and he allowed it to happen. I kept quiet and kept writing. A letter arrived for our mother. We didn't know who it was from, but when my mother was done reading, rage vibrated through her body. His girlfriend had taken it upon herself to write a letter informing my mother of how awful a child I was. She crossed a line. I never got to read the letter. I wasn't allowed to know exactly what the girlfriend had written, but I understood that she hated me just as much as I hated her. Not only did I love the inside of our house, but I loved the outside. The middle sister and I would climb and sit in the large tree that stood in the front yard. Halloween became my favorite holiday because I had so much fun decorating and handing out candy. Old clothes stuffed with leaves made it look like bodies were crawling out of the bushes. Mannequin heads that my middle sister found while helping someone move were left in bushes to make it look like they were decapitated. We even used red nail polish to make them look bloody. Life was stable enough that this was the first time we had a place for trick or treating. I didn't love the kids, but I loved how creative I was allowed to be. I wanted to hide in my favorite climbing tree and scare the kids. My sisters did not agree to my plan. I was the one to rake leaves. I mowed the lawn so my mom wouldn't have to. There was no money for garden tools, so at one point I used office scissors to trim our front bushes. I could not stand looking at them growing unevenly. Our neighbor was so sweet to us and would let me borrow tools. Unfortunately, I used some large shears to over trim a tree that ended up killing it. The neighbor helped pull the dead tree out of the ground too. That neighbor showed me the first praying mantis I had ever seen. Plants lined the sides of the house, and at the time I had no clue what they were called, but I took care of them. Pulling the old leaves and stalks in the fall made me oddly happy. Cleaning the weeds out of the flower beds made me feel clean. There was a dirt patch that had been a vegetable garden for the previous owners. When we got there, there were so many ants in it that it was hard to tell what was dirt and what was ants. Anytime I sat in grass, I would itch. Assuming I sat on an anthill and they bit me, I never thought twice about the itching. Years later, I found out I was allergic to grass. I knew I enjoyed taking care of landscaping, but my love of nature went unrecognized. The grass in the backyard was decimated. When we got the yard mowed, our mower was set as low as possible so we didn't have to mow often. We didn't need the grass back because our backyard was our volleyball court. When the volleyball sensation was over, a trampoline took its place. Grass only grew under the trampoline that year. For completing middle school and a birthday combo, I convinced my mom to purchase a 12-foot trampoline for the backyard. No netting. Wonderful memories were made. As a youth, we were fearless and didn't care if we hurt ourselves as we wrestled and jumped with the sprinklers underneath, shooting water everywhere we jumped. During the summer, I would read while laying on the trampoline. I was enrolled in honors English, so I had homework to complete before the summer was over. I didn't mind because I loved to read. My skin was so tan that year it looked fake. My friends would try and sneak up on me as I was reading. Sisters bonded over the fun on the trampoline. Um, yeah, stars were looked at while I fell in love. My middle sister tells me years later that between eighth grade and ninth, I changed. In a blink of an eye, I had grown up. My confidence bloomed, and I no longer cared what people thought about me. I was living my life and making my choices. I felt like I was gaining control in life. One day, I was her little sister, and the next, I had become my own person. It was the day I decided I'm not hurting anyone with my choices, so who cares what they think? Most of the people I will never see again. I'm going to have fun and be myself. If they remember me, they will remember me for something I control. I was breaking out of my church bubble upbringing. Great memories were made in the house. My first kiss happened in the basement. We celebrated the new millennium, and the oldest daughter got engaged. I loved living there. I loved every inch of that house and wanted to stay there forever. In my mind, I planned on being there when I finished high school and came home from college. And weeks into school, I find out that a boy in my study hall had been at my church recently. His mom had died, and his family was looking for a church home. As a group, we made cards for the family, and he recognized my name. We started passing a notebook back and forth to write, talk. It was silent. Uh, we became friends. At my locker, I heard two kids talking about two planes in a building. I thought they were talking about a math problem. And I continued my day, and I was excited to see my skater friend in study hall. The room was silent as I walked in. All eyes were watching the TV mounted in the corner of the classroom. Two planes had been flown into the World Trade Center. Nothing in my life directly changed, but the world did. The only class that functioned like normal was my French class. Life wasn't too good for too long. I went to say goodbye to my mom before we left for school. She was still in her room getting dressed, and when I see her, I notice she's been crying. That wasn't uncommon, but it's never something you expect to see. I give her a hug and I try and comfort her like I always do, but depression is in my DNA. When the youth pastor comes to get me from school, I know something is wrong with my mom. I could feel it when I left her and she hadn't left my mind. It was now Thanksgiving break from school. We went home and packed clothes and things we needed because we would be sleeping at our youth pastor's house until my mom came home from the hospital. She had enrolled herself at a hospital for mental health. Every sister understood that mom was trying to take care of herself. We supported her and we missed her. Watching my mom struggle to provide a home became harder and harder. Without finishing college, keeping her job was a struggle. It seemed that once everything started to get on track financially and there was hope of getting ahead, something horrible would happen. The minivan would die, something in the house would need repair, or mom would get laid off. The church gave us great support, but they could only pay the mortgage so many times. Once again, Christmas became an issue. There was no money for gifts. We had gotten used to the idea that Christmas wasn't about gifts. Of course, mom wanted to give her children gifts, and we wanted to give our mom things she couldn't get herself. Mom never spent money on herself, so whenever we had money, we tried to spoil her. One year, we got her a comforter and pillows because she would never spend money. Yeah, we got her comforters and pillows because she would never spend money on things for her. Our goal was to make her happy. But usually when we did something like that, she cried. The church knew our situation and wanted to help. Our Christmas gifts were provided by multiple families from our church. We had all made friends and they were very generous to us. We were all very thankful for anything we received. But it was an eye-opener that our lives were going to need to change again. And it was only a matter of when. My mom got married when she was 19. The oldest sister, a senior, was in a serious relationship with her first boyfriend. With her boyfriend. They spoke about the future and planned to go to the same college. It looked like my sister was on track to marry young, just like my mom. We thought that was normal. Getting married young and about 2 years of dating was considered normal and healthy. A dance was coming up at school. I had never gone to a dance with a date, but I wanted to. I assumed no boy was going to ask me. I knew who I wanted to go with. The quiet boy had my attention. We had filled many notebooks during study hall with our flirtings and conversations. There was a day after school when we were saying goodbye, and he looked me directly in the eyes for the first time. I looked up and saw his eyes were electric blue looking back at me. My world had changed. New love is a dance unlike any other. There's a timid hesitation, but a curiosity that can't be denied. We obviously liked each other, but had no clue what to do. We had plans for him to skateboard to my house after school, and we hung out and hang out. I waited for hours on the couch looking out the window. Anyone who passed by our house got my hopes up. He had forgotten about me. I should have known that day that he was going to break my heart many times. One day I get a call on the phone. My sister tells me there's a boy on the phone asking for me. The skateboarder had searched for and found my phone number. I became a part of his group at school. Most of his friends became my friends. I had people to talk with at lunch and before school. I was the only girl often, but that didn't bother me. I preferred it that way because I didn't like any of the other girls. Neither of us could drive yet, so we begged siblings to drive us back and forth. We spent almost every day together after school if we could. I would sit on the curb while he skateboarded with his friends. I would try, but it worried him too much when I wobbled. His family was welcoming because I was active in church. They assumed that I would be obedient to their rules and not speak my mind. They were wrong. My boyfriend would join me at church. I was in high school, but my two best friends at church were in 8th grade. I had been separated from my friends on Sundays and in all youth events because of our age. When they saw me holding hands with a tall skateboarder, their faces showed their feelings. My two best friends didn't like what they were seeing. I started to separate my church life from real life. I started to question the teachings of the church. I knew all the answers that were considered correct, but I started to see the more gray areas. I was involved in high school youth group, but I found it less and less fun. The youth was my sister's group, not mine. Soon, even my sister changed churches. Love was everywhere. Dad was getting married to the woman with the two other daughters. Ironically, the wedding date was June 25th, same as the divorce date we celebrated years ago. One visitation weekend, we are walking through a mall at the jewelry section. Like a raccoon, I noticed something shiny I liked. And to my shock, the fiancé suggests we all get a ring. I picked the ring with the stone I thought was light pink, my favorite color. Each daughter, now 5 females, had a ring. The wedding was coming up. I was the only daughter to say I didn't want to go. I had no desire to see them get married or be happy. He made our life miserable, and I was angry he was getting to be happy. I was angry he could live a life while his daughters struggled. Countless people told me I would regret not being there. Church people tried to give me advice on forgiveness and family. My sisters were getting a ride with a friend to the wedding. The future bride lived 3 hours away, so the wedding was a weekend event. At the last minute, I went against my instincts and decided to join my sisters in the car ride. A friend from church was driving us, and I wanted to be a part of that. He had the speakers that were so loud in his back seat that it was my first part of regretting going to the wedding. By the time we arrived, I had a horrible headache. I was in a strange place with strange people. I sat alone in the hallways in the dark while everyone else in the house laughed and talked. I had not mentally prepared for what I was going to be facing all weekend. Deciding to go was such a last-minute decision that I didn't bring in an appropriate dress. Fashion was not a concern to me. Tank tops and skirts were my fashion, so that is what I brought. No one told me I was going to be in the wedding pictures. While waiting at the church before the ceremony, the first picture I ever liked myself in was taken. When I looked in pictures, I still saw the chipmunk-cheeked, round-faced little girl. The day of his wedding was the first time I saw myself as beautiful in a picture. The picture was taken on an old Polaroid camera. Despite my increased confidence, my day would not get better. While talking about the ceremony, I discover that I am part of the ceremony. I discover that I am to leave my seat in the audience, join my father and her on stage, along with my 4 other sisters. All daughters together will vow to obey and respect their parents. I was given no choice. I was not given the chance to say no. I grew angry because I did not want to be a part of anything. I regretted being there. I should have stayed home. I stood on the stage. I received my ring back, and I did not open my mouth. I would not vow anything to that woman. Her children are not my sisters. When picture time arrived, I refused to smile. I was angry and I felt tricked. I did not want to be in the pictures, but they did not want to hear my words. I did not care if I ruined their photos. I hated them both. I found an unexpected ally in my older sister during high school. I was a freshman and she was a senior. I wasn't afraid of high school. I had been to so many schools already that I was too numb to be scared about starting again. I knew I had sisters. Having older sisters comes in handy. Freshman lockers are located by mostly freshman classrooms. Our high school had been expanded so quickly that there are 2 third-floor corridors in the school that do not connect. I had a frantic dash across the school to get to my classes, so there was not always time to go to my locker for the correct book. I was always panicked I would get to class after the bell. In an act of kindness, my older sister shared her locker with me. Her locker was directly located outside a few of my classes. We would leave each other notes on the top shelf of the locker. I created little nicknames to make her laugh. Sometimes our notes were silly, sometimes our notes were meaningful. We became friends that year. We understood each other on a different, mature level. In the basement of my stable home, I had my first kiss while dancing. I was so terrified, I moved at the last minute before having the courage to let him kiss me. We would hold hands any chance we had, even while he played hacky sack during lunch. We loved each other. We respected each other and told each other everything. Together, we kept secrets from the rest of the world. We knew that being too close was forbidden. We knew that we shouldn't be exploring each other. Most of our friends didn't even think we kissed. What they didn't know is that little by little, we had become comfortable with each other to be naked. Any pictures he kept to himself. Before him, I thought I would be utterly embarrassed to be seen naked. I had never liked my body before until now. But I didn't have my braces anymore, but I had severe acne. People told me that I was beautiful before, but I never believed them. I never believed them. I believed him. I trusted him, and what we had was beautiful. I wanted him to explore me. Learning to be sensual and give yourself to someone should be exactly what we had. I regret nothing. Honors English was one of my favorite classes. I didn't mind the summer homework or the long essays. I enjoyed the debate and conversation in the classroom. I was allowed to speak my views and ask my questions without fear. I was used to asking questions to Southern Baptist adults, but now I was able to question other Christians. Other religions fascinated me. I started to question who got to decide what was good or bad. Why were certain words so bad that they could send you to hell? Why could two pastors tell two different sermons over the same piece of scripture? I was unsatisfied with the answers I was receiving, and I started to notice human manipulation and hypocrisy in every religion. 2 out of 3 sisters had found love. We understood each other on a new level. For once, the middle sister was left out. The middle sister gravitated towards church and God, while I gravitated towards towards my boyfriend and started questioning everything. During the time my bedroom was in the basement, my boyfriend came over often. Our relationship was dramatic. To apologize, I woke up one morning to find my windows covered in white paper. Each paper taped to the outside of my window had a reason he loved me on it. It was a large pile of papers I kept a long time. One summer, my boyfriend set up a scavenger hunt through the neighborhood that ended in the back field with a boom box. Most of the time, we were happy. My boyfriend appreciated my bold honesty and confidence, but his father did not. It was difficult for me to watch the relationship with my boyfriend and his father. When they spoke to each other, it was like watching them speak different languages. My boyfriend's family was Southern and very Christian. Women and children were not supposed to be as vocal as I was. He was not my father, and I was not going to let him control me. I resented the fact that my boyfriend allowed his family to control his life and decisions. I thought I was helping my boyfriend become stronger and more independent. I thought we were a team going towards the same goal: marriage. By the time my mom received the phone call, "We have a problem with Whitney," I was already halfway home. My mom didn't care what the problem was. All she wanted to know was where I was. My boyfriend and I had permission from his father to go to a concert after a church ceremony that was a ruse, so his father could get eh, hmm. so his father could get married in the church. During the ceremony, there is an announcement of an event after church. When my boyfriend and I try to leave, he chases us. We run and go to the concert as agreed. When we get home, I refuse to apologize. I refuse to accept that my boyfriend is grounded and can't drive me home. I refuse a ride from my boyfriend's sister. I start walking home so my mother gets the call. I made it home safely, but I was not regularly welcome in my boyfriend's family any longer. I didn't care what the other kids thought of me. Chemistry required that I wear closed-toed shoes on lab days. I had an English presentation that I dressed nicely for on the same day. For the presentation, I brought fancy shoes. Wearing a fancy skirt, I walked around with my skater shoes on. Just to see people's reaction, I would wear my hair in pigtails like Pippi Longstocking. Standing out at school for being weird became fun. When my boyfriend decided to bleach his hair, I decided to do something fun too. My goal was 2 red streaks in my hair, framing my face. What happened was my super beautiful golden hair turned 2 streaks pink. With a deep hatred for pink because of my memories from my Pepto-Bismol room, I detested the change in my hair. Whatever chemical I used to correct my mistake damaged my hair beyond repair. For some reason, we decided to use the chemical on all of my hair, not just the pink streaks. When the chemical was washed out, my hair broke as I brushed it. I cried as my golden hair covered the floor because it was damaged so badly. My hair had been past my shoulders, and to stop the hair breakage, my hair had to be cut the shortest I'd ever dared. My long, beautiful golden hair was gone. One Valentine's Day, my boyfriend gifted me long stem roses. I carried them all with pride. My favorite honors English teacher saw and commented, "Someone is loved." I felt loved. I felt valued by not only my boyfriend, but my English teacher. This teacher was involved in theater, so I got to see him often. He was animated and fun to talk to. There are things he said that will stay with me forever. I love writing and I love reading. Honors English wasn't about the rules of how to write, it was about trying to interpret what was being written. Our classes were discussions about what we thought the author was trying to convey to the audience. Sometimes I could agree with what was being said. Other times I thought they were making it up because they were supposed to find something. It bothered me that we couldn't ask the author if we were correct. I started to question why the books we were reading were so influential. There was an author that used no punctuation. Another author used flashbacks and flash forwards, but never truly made clear which state of time we were in. Their styles frustrated me. It made no sense to me that they ignored the rules and were considered great. Why bother learning the rules if they don't matter? Why learn the rules if I want to make my own? My teacher answered, "You have to learn the rules before you can learn how to break them." If the words of the story are powerful enough, the punctuation was a small detail. My diction matters. My words matter. For the first time in my life, a male adult valued my voice and opinion. I was being spoken to like an adult. He was the last English teacher I ever truly respected. The realization that we would have to leave our house devastated me. It was as if the floor dropped out from under me. My safety blanket was ripped away and I was left exposed. When we moved in, I unpacked my room in one day. I was so excited to be there. Repacking hurt my heart. I felt a piece of myself break for every box I packed. End